Good afternoon, everybody. I cannot believe that we are now on to interview number 2 with the gorgeous Sammy Blindell. Now, as I said to everybody this morning, that there were many intentions for me doing this online summit, and my biggest big why was the fact that Women of Contribution is all about women coming together to collaborate and share their gifts with the world. And all too often I kept hearing, actually, I've got nothing to share. Now, the Pay It Forward Notes to My Younger Self book, which is this lovely book that we're going to be talking about, is one of the reasons why we did this, was that it actually showcased what can happen, the phenomenal magic that can happen when women come together to collaborate. And also the fact that by sharing a story, you can truly impact on another's lives. Now, my intention for you over this week-long series is that you get inspired and empowered by these phenomenal women's stories, and that you actually understand the magic that can happen when women come together. And as I mentioned this morning, next year on March the 8th, International Women's Day, we're going to be having the first ever Women of Contribution conference, which is called Destined for Bigger Things, because I believe that absolutely every single woman on this planet is destined for bigger things. Now, just to go through some kind of logistics, and as I mentioned this morning, I'm not the best technical person in the world. There is about a 60-second delay in the recording, and if there are any technical difficulties, please bear with us. Now, during this period, I will be checking. So if you want to post any questions, please post them under the live video, and we will try to get to as many questions as we possibly can. And those that we can't get to, obviously we can come back to later, and I'm sure Sammy will be more than happy to come back to later. So a massive welcome to each and every single one of you. And for those of you that don't know me, my name's Kezia Luckett, and I am the founder of Women of Contribution and the creator of the Pay It Forward series, Notes to My Younger Self. And basically, I knew that I was put on this planet to do something more than what I was doing. And it took the love of phenomenal women, Sammy included, to give me a boot up the backside and inspire me and empower me to bring this book to life. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But as I say, I am so lucky to be welcoming today Sammy Blindell, who is the founder of How to Build a Brand and also the author of the chapter named Shut Up and Shut It Out. Sorry, just needed to double check that. So welcome, Sammy. I'm so excited.
Hello. I'm excited too. It's another opportunity to play together. I love playing.
I know. It's very good fun, especially on a Monday when a lot of people are feeling that kind of, just
I used to feel that way.
Once upon a time. And you'll be telling women about how you used to feel that way. But before we start on any of the questions, I think the main thing that I wanted you to start off with is just to take people back. If they haven't read your chapter in the book, there was an instance that you had with a little girl when you were 5 years old in the playground where she branded you, but there was something that kick-started that memory to bring it to the forefront of your mind. Can you just explain what that was?
Yeah, I think we all have that that time in our life when you something happens, and I'm a very visual person, for those of you that are visual as well. So I tend to play movies. And so there was an experience that happened that I talk about in the book, and I really hope that you get to read it if you haven't read it so far. That Kezia and I were on a documentary last year, and this is how this whole thing happened, because without that experience, I actually wouldn't be here telling this story right now, and I probably wouldn't have had the breakthrough that I had after the breakdown that created the breakthrough. And sometimes we see these things that happen to us in life as a disaster, or it consumes us, and we all go through things that knock you off your axis, and every day there's going to be something, but that the stronger you get and the more used to these things that are happening to you that you get, even whether it's Facebook Live, switching it on and it not working the way you wanted it to, there's always something, and it can knock you off your axis. But what I found is that there's like this elasticity that you enable to normalize you in situations. And I'd normalized shut up and shut it out. And I didn't realize that I'd normalized that until Kazir and I were 5,500 feet up in the mountains of San Diego on, if you've been on ever one of those tall trees courses or Go Ape, for example. Now, I used to throw myself up those trees and, you know, we'd be playing like monkeys around, you know, these wire, you know, zip wires and things. And I love anything like that. So when I found out we were doing this tall trees exercise, I was one of the ones that went, no, got this sorted. I don't need any training around that. And everyone else is having training. But when it came to it, and I'm stood there looking up at this 40-foot pole, which is like a telegraph pole with these big staples in it that you climb up. It wasn't until I did that, and I'm not going to tell you the whole story because I want you to go into the book and read the story, that there were some things that came up for me that I didn't realize were there. And it wasn't until the following day, when everybody else who had achieved it were talking about it, that that's where the lump in my throat started to get bigger. And if you've ever had that experience, it got to the point where it's actually quite painful. Felt like all my glands were swollen. And what I didn't realize was that because of the emotional experience that was going on inside, I was physically changing color too. And I didn't know that. So zip forward. And it's very challenging trying to tell the story without telling the story, like the little hook line. Now we know how EastEnders do it, but you know, these script writers, Steven Spielberg, here we come. So I'm stood in the lobby and we're waiting to now go on to our next filming location. And I was still feeling very emotional. And you know, what's wonderful about being in a community like this is people really care. And of course, when people really care, that can make you cry. And so I'm stood there trying to be the brave leader, you know, no, nothing gets me down. You know, in the background, you know, no gloss of Facebook or anything to be able to mask it. Here we are in person, and it's like, you know, my emoji is showing real symptoms of stress and distress. And so the director of the directory, she comes over and she starts talking to me about what's going on for me. And one of our other awakening giants, Catherine, she comes over and she stood there. And you know, when someone asks you a question and it unlocks something and you have no idea why, and sometimes you can act in a certain way and you go, what just happened? Why did I just do that? Oh my God. Well, that's what happened when Catherine came over, saw I was in distress, and asked one question that, and we've spoken about this since, she thought would cheer me up. So she's expecting my reaction to be, oh yeah, you know, taking me into a different state. My reaction was very different. So Catherine asks me, Sammy, what did they used to call you as a child? Simple question. And she was expecting me to say, you know, I don't know, Pink Panther, Samantha the Pink Panther or something like that. And yes, I did have that one. But the thing that came out of my mouth was what shocked me most. So imagine she's asked this question in front of Sprite Loriano, the director and producer of Awakening Giants. And she says, Sammy, what did they used to call you when you were younger? And that it didn't even take a second for it to leave my mouth. Fat. And I was just like, I think I was shocked that it came out of my mouth, but I can still see Catherine's face now. I can still, as soon as that word, God, I've got goosebumps all over me. As soon as that word left my mouth, she went like she'd been hit by a train, a rabbit in the headlights. And it was her reaction to what I'd said that actually created the breakthrough. Because then Sprite has thought, oh, okay, let's move on the conversation, and starts trying to pick it up. So those two are deep in conversation, blah, 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 blah. And I'm stood there like a third wheel, just analyzing what the heck just happened there. What just happened? Why did I say that? Where did that come from? How could I say that? How embarrassing. Oh my God. Oh no. Like now I'm not just branded a failure because of not being able to get up that pole, but I'm also branded, you know, an idiot that can't keep control of my mouth. And I thought, oh my gosh, and then then that thought came to me, branded. Oh, did I just brand myself? How I act, that's branding me. Interesting. And then I had this visual. It was like God just played a movie in my head and just said, here you go. Let's just cut to the chase here. This is the reason. And I saw this movie and I hadn't thought about this since the day it happened. And this happens then. I've got goosebumps all over me. So I'm on my first day of school. Now, bear in mind, I've always hung around with older kids. I've always hung around with older leaders. And so there's me like this, watching all of my older friends go to school. I couldn't wait to go to school. I was too young to go to school. So there's all my friends that are a couple of years older than me. They're all off there going. I can see them with their backpacks. Of course, I'm looking at their shiny shoes thinking, I need to go to school so that I can get the backpack and the shoes and all the lovely things that they've got that they're taking to school. And I'm watching them go. So my first day of school, I am bouncing like a flea. I'm bouncing around like a flea because I was so excited. So I get to school and it comes to the first break. Now the sun's shining, beautiful. I can just remember it. It's so vivid. The sun's shining. I can hear the screams and the laughter and, kiss chase and hopscotch and all the things that happen that I had not been exposed to anything like that before. So, and if you know me, I love to play, and that never left me. Right. So I'm looking and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stimulated by all this. Like, where do I go first? And I see this group of girls and they're playing the rope game. So they're kind of jumping up and down on the rope, 1, 2, 3, how many times could they jump and without catching it or, they counting it up. So I go beeline, I run to these girls. And just as I get up to them, one of them puts her hand up and she says, go somewhere else, Fatso, you're too fat to play this. And her hand was, I'm going to do this big hand, right? Her hand's right in my face. And I thought, wow, Fatso. Oh, and then I looked at myself and then I looked at the other kids in the playground and I started comparing myself to those kids and, oh, I am different. I am different. And I started to shrink. And this is the bit I don't talk about in the book. And I really started to shrink back. And it was in that moment that Catherine did that. And all this has gone through my mind in about 15 seconds, maybe 30 seconds max. So I've relived the whole experience while they're, right? I can't hear anything. All I can see is their mouths moving. And I just had this realization about what happened in that moment and how I've lived my life or not ever since then as a result of that happening. So I couldn't help myself. I reached out and I touched both of them and I said, I'm really sorry to interrupt what just happened there, but sorry, Sprite, Catherine. So I look her dead in the eyes. I want to thank you. And so then I get the look again. And she's like, what for? And I said, I've just realized that I allowed that girl to brand me that day in the playground. And I didn't even understand what branding was then. But because she branded me as fat, I lived my whole life up to that expectation. And I protected myself. I hid from my potential, that there are greater things, there are bigger things for me. I hid behind that. And, I play quite big. People look at me and they go, wow, you're here and you're there. And I'm actually playing very small in comparison to what I know I can do. And so, that feeling of knowing that there's something greater, just even having those like neural pathways go, oh. So I said to her, thank you. Now I know why I care about branding so much. And I didn't realize why. But if you know me, you'll know I'm on a real mission because I can't stand people branding themselves in a way that's not representative of who they actually are. And that, you're all here to lead a big life and play a big game and reach lives and touch lives. It's got to start with your own first. So how do you inspire you to be that great leader of your family, your business, your life, your marriage, your household? These things show up everywhere. And, you know, it's there's this whole thing around leader, isn't there? And people think that you've got to be running a business to be a leader, and it's just not true. So that was the whole thing behind it, and a very powerful thing. And that led to a whole new journey, a whole other journey since then. But yeah, that was the whole thing behind it. And it was just unbelievable how that unfolded, and that whole movie, and how fast it was. And, you know, maybe that's happening for you right now.
And it's amazing, isn't it, how we allow ourselves to be branded. Say I had the other side, I was too skinny. And so I spent my whole life absolutely hating my body. And again, that tends to make you play small and cover up and hide up and do all those things that actually we shouldn't be doing. And it's interesting, when you were talking, that the bit of your story that really resonated with me was the fact that you looked at yourself and thought, I am different. And now as adults, and it's taken me a long time, and I know it's probably taken you and many of our viewers a long time.
Still do it. It's easy to do it.
That actually being different is good.
Yes.
You know, why are we trying so hard to fit in when we were born to stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the sentence I said to you the day that we were hugging everybody. You know, there were two things. Two things happened at that particular documentary, because I then went on to do another one of their documentaries in November. Two things happened. The first thing was that I was hugging everyone and saying, do you know what? I came here thinking that I was going to be the biggest person here. And I was worried that I would be the biggest person, as in fattest person. But what I realized was that actually I really held my space. And that you know, and holding my shape of integrity, that, you know, I realized that I could be the biggest person in the playground because of the biggest contribution and the biggest impact, not just because I'm the biggest person there. And so, you know, and that also was brought on by the realization I made a huge mistake. And you know this, Kezia, I made a huge mistake, and I think you did this as well. Before I went on to film the documentary, I looked everybody up that was going to be on the documentary. Well, they took 100 global change makers from the world and split us between 5 locations and filmed 3 episodes in each location. So here I am amongst 19 other global giants that are doing the most amazing things. And I'm now looking at their websites, and so I'm doing the same thing I did in that freaking playground. I'm comparing myself to all of them. God, you know, they've got all these followers. They've got, you know, I've got like thousands of followers, and I'm looking at them and at their followers, and I have more followers than most of them. Yet I'm still comparing myself and, oh my God, look at how many followers they are. Look at what they're doing. So by the time I get out there, I'm like this big. Why the hell am I even here? Right. So then we're cuddling at the end, and I'm saying, oh my God, you know, I'm so pleased that, like, I just love you, and I love everything you're about, and thank you. You know, I was really worried about meeting you. And they were like, what? I looked you up and I was really worried about meeting you. And it's like, what? So everybody on that trip all had the same experience. So when I went to film the second one, I didn't look at anyone. I didn't know who they were. I just got out there and I thought, we're on the same playing field now. And so by comparing myself to people, it took me right back to that small place again, looking around going, I am different, but you know what? I'm bloody glad I am. And you're different. And everybody you know is different. You know, we need to celebrate each other's differences and facilitate and enable and support people to be the biggest person in the impact that they want to leave. And if we think about impact rather than weight, it just changed my perspective on it, and contribution as well, of course. That impact creates contribution. Contribution is impact. You know, it's just infinite.
So take people back, because what you do now, and we'll get to that in a minute, is phenomenal. And, you know, I've worked with you, you've been a mentor, a friend. I just absolutely adore everything that you do. But there was a time where actually you were incredibly successful, but probably similar to Sarah Sparks' story this morning, there was lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. Can you tell people a little bit about that?
So do you mean as in when I ran those businesses and
when
burned
you
out?
ran all your businesses,
right.
And eventually you had a warning from the doctor?
Yes. So, gosh, Yeah, in fact, Sparky, Sarah Sparks, she's a very close personal friend of ours. So we've had a lot of conversations about this. You know, and again, I can pin it right back to that moment in the playground, because I was so focused on fitting in and always wanting to improve, got to be friends, you know, everyone's got to love me, fear of rejection, fear of missing out, you know, all these things, and that takes a lot of energy. And so almost by accident, from that state, from that place that was completely unconscious, that I didn't even know was running for me, I created well, in the end, 6 very successful businesses, because I poured everything into those businesses. And you know, in time, you know, they were successful. One of them, I call that a success because I learned a lot from it. But, you know, yeah, that was somebody coming to me making promises, you know, oh, well, you do all the branding and the website and I'll do all the sales and everything, and I've got the products and da, da, and of course you do that. We put all of our energy into it, and then they didn't deliver on their promise. And so I think about partnerships in a very different way now. You know, and as a result of that, you know, we closed that business. It was like, right, okay, that was like closing a box in my mind that was taking up space. So by the time it came to my burnout, my business partner, we had 5 businesses operating then at that time, and all at the same time. So I just remember my business partner, the left-hand side of his body collapsed through stress. I mean, how long can you actually work 18 to 20 hours a day and it not impact you? I mean, we'd been doing that. By the time we sold our last business in 2013, we'd built those 6 companies, and we'd been doing that for nearly 11 years. So over an 11-year period, right? So it took, you know, up until like 10 and a half years for this to be a problem. But that stress on the body, you know, it starts as a little thing. And again, that stress elasticity, you get used to it and you pour more on and more on and more on. And before you know it, it's actually consumed your body, and your body's in fight or flight 24/7. Even when you're asleep, your brain's still thinking about all the stuff you haven't done. And that's how I was. And so my business partner, the left-hand side of his body collapsed, like literally collapsed through stress. And it was just the most horrendous time of being really worried about my business partner, but also then taking on all the responsibility that he had, as well as running these 5 businesses. So it didn't take long before I then started having chest pains. So that was about 2.5 months after he went off with stress. So then I end up at the doctor's with horrendous chest pains. And I just remember it wasn't even the doctor's. I was in the hospital. I took myself to hospital. And, you know, you've got all the bright lights and the smell of anesthetic, and, you know, a curtain that's kind of halfway, but you can see everybody buzzing and running everywhere, and noise and everything. But the biggest noise that was making an impact on me was the beep, beep, beep of measuring, you know, how often my heart was beating and was there a problem. And, you know, and they couldn't find anything. And that was the thing. It was almost like I wanted them to tell me that there was something wrong so I could fix it and get back to work. But they couldn't. They just said, we can't find anything. Everything seems to be normal. You know, your heartbeat's raised, but everything seems to be okay. You're okay, Miss Blindell. You know, just go back, take a bit of time off. You know, thinking, yeah, if only you knew, like, I haven't got time to take time off. Who do you think you're talking to, you know? So off I go, dot, and carry on. And then the next month, I end up back there again. And it actually took the 4th time in as many months. So it was just less than 4 months. And I ended up there, and the same consultant, he just pulls me to one side and he said, Miss Blindell, you have to change what you're doing. I can't guarantee that if I see you here in this cubicle one more time, that what you're doing to your body is going to be reversible. You have to change what you're doing. You have to stop. You know, what's more important, work or your life? And I was just like, that's what it took. And, you know, and as a result of that, that's when I made some very final decisions. And we've been going through a process of selling our business. And so we've been getting evaluated. We had all the accountants onto it, and they were negotiating, and we had people that were coming in that were looking at buying the business and going through all the accounts and meetings. And we've been going through that for about 18 months anyway. So we'd already had the thought that we would exit the company.
Probably
but
just
I didn't like the values. Well, yeah. And the thing, and I think what was really stressing us the most, and when I look back on it, hindsight is a wonderful thing. What was stressing me out the most was the people that were wanting to buy it. They were just focusing on profit, not purpose. And they didn't have the same values as us. And I go against every rule where it comes to business, and I become friends with my clients because I care about them and I care about the result. And so because of that, it was hurting my heart that we couldn't find somebody that would care about our customers in the same way that we did. And we had, thousands of customers on the books. And so, we're thinking, like, how do we even do this? And just in the end, I was like, do you know what? This is too painful. I just need to shut it down and walk away. Yeah. I'd rather walk away than let anyone down. Yeah. And they can find their own path, because people always do. And so I made that decision. And so I went into the office the next day, and I say to Tim, who was our operations director, he'd been practically managing the company for 7 years anyway. And I just sat down with him and my business partner and said, I'm done. I'm walking away from this. I can't do this anymore. This is hurting my heart. And there's a reason it's hurting. And I don't know why it's hurting my heart, but I'm working a lot of hours and I'm not fulfilled in what I'm doing. This isn't what I'm meant for. I'm meant for bigger things, which is funny. You've caught that as a name of the conference. I just knew, while I was serving one client at a time, or maybe 2 or 3 clients in a day, I wanted to be serving 2 or 3 million clients in a day, not one at a time. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't have the money to do it, because now I was walking away from the business. And in fact, my business partner and I, we sat down that night, and he said, but Tim hasn't got the money, and Tim had said to me, don't worry, I'll find the money. I'll find it, because it's been valued at 7.8 million. Where's he going to pull that out? Like, where's he going to get that from, And so he's gone away to think about how he's going to get this money. And, my business partner and I are sitting there, and I just said, you know what? He has worked his tail off for us for the last 7 years. I love him to death. The clients love him to death. Him continuing this business means that there's consistency. We don't let anybody down. We get to walk away. Now, we walk away with nothing, but we actually buy our lives back. And I'm going to suggest that we exchange this business, and there only needs to be £1 that's exchanged for us to do that. And after him going through that process, he finally came around and he said, okay. And so we walked in the next day, and we said, Tim, we're going to give you a legacy. And that's what we did. And he has since sold the business to someone else and still works in the business, because he's a great employee and he's brilliant at operations and a terrible business owner. So, and he recognized that very quickly. So he's now sold that. There's another company running that in York, in the north of England now. Our business was based in Leeds, so it's now running in York, and he now travels every day and he works in York. So life continued. I held my shape. I did what was right for me. I did what was right for my customers, and I got to walk away. And literally we exchanged the paperwork, and that night I was on a ferry over to France, and I moved to France for 4.5 years with zero intention of starting anything else. I was burned out. I was done. It was going to be my time now. And I really had to find another way of making money, because I walked away from that business for £1. So that was 50p each to me and my business partner. We sold everything. We gave them the list. They had everything, because that was only right. If you're going to walk away from something, have a clean break. The only thing that I kept, and I insisted on that, was the content. So they kept all the contracts, they kept everything, but we had thousands of blogs. We created programs, and we needed to keep that content, because that was my intellectual property. So, if anything's going through your mind and you're thinking about that, your content is actually, your content and subscription, well, this is what I've learned, your content and subscription or membership is the real value of the business. So I took those things with me, but we left everything else there. And the rest is history. I can't believe what has happened next, but you've got to find another way. And I found that when you haven't got the resources, you get really resourceful.
Yeah. But initially, my understanding was initially when you moved to France, and obviously you changed your life completely, you moved to France. It was a case of just stopping And then all of a sudden, as is often the case, the universe has other plans. And
poke,
yeah,
poke,
exactly.
poke.
I mean, you didn't listen when the universe was pushing your health until it got too bad. But then all of a sudden, the universe starts prodding and poking, and ideas start forming that had been a little seed to start off with anyway, a long time ago. But then you decided enough's enough. You have to follow the purpose that you were put on this planet to do, and you have to contribute to the world that only Sammy Blindell knows how to contribute to the world in that way. Explain to people, and obviously they know that you are from How to Build a Brand. Explain to people what happens when you fully step into your power, but the universe is backing you every step of the way, and the explosion of growth that you get and the life that you've created on your terms.
That how you just ended that is the everything. That is everything.
I've seen the journey. I've seen
you have seen the journey, literally. So gosh, it took about 3 months. Unfortunately, I wasn't. Now, you know, Sarah and I have had lots of conversations about this, and I feel very blessed that actually I wasn't as burned out as she was. You know, and everybody has different levels of burnout, but you know, I was physically exhausted, where, you know, there's emotional exhaustion, there's other types of exhaustion. Unfortunately, it only took 3 months for me to really start getting back. I mean, ultimately, it took a toll on my body. It probably took about 2 years to actually get my energy back, but it was about 3 months before I had enough room in my brain for it to start opening up to possibilities again. And I just thought about all the different business models. You know, I'd been making millions of pounds, dollars, and euros for other people. And, you know, the if people are wondering what is it that I built, the main business that I built was a branding, marketing, and web design agency. So I already had the knowledge of what I needed to do, and I'd been making, like I say, all this money for other people, but I hadn't proven it for myself. And I thought, you know what? I've been doing this for all these other people. What's the worst that can happen? I've got nothing anyway. What's the worst that can happen if I, you know, give myself a date with a deadline? That's what I would tell everyone else to do. And I would say to people, you know, get really focused on your vision. So what's my vision? And I started to, you know, it's very difficult to do it on yourself in the same way that you do it for other people. So it took me a bit longer to do it. But you know, like the 7-step brand Kickstarter that I do with all of my clients, that's what I did. I did it on myself. And once I had a clear vision of what it was that I wanted to have achieved, and that really came as a result of being selfish for the first time really in my whole life. And I thought, hang on a minute, you know, I've always been thinking about customers, which is a good thing. And there's a way to do it though. So, you know, thinking about the customers and what I could deliver for them, and then being consumed in the delivery to make sure that they had that. But what if I were able to deliver the life that I want? What would that look like? If I were my own customer, what brief would I give to me? And so I started looking at all of the different options, different business models, and, you know, membership models. And like, you know, the businesses that I built were very physical. People walked through the door and we served them. So how could I do something that was global, and what would it look like, and how would I achieve it? And, you know, after just really, you know, I spent about a week just getting really clear on what business model I wanted. And I knew that I wanted to travel, because I'd never really traveled. I traveled to France and back, but I'd never really traveled anywhere. Gosh, has that changed? I've been in England. I moved back to England from France in November last year, and I've spent 5 weeks at home this whole year. We're now 9 months into the year. So traveling is a big thing for me. And I just literally came back from 6 weeks of traveling around the States doing business. I made more money and more impact than I've made in my life. And I did it while I was traveling around, and that's still frying my noodle a bit. But so, you know, we were constantly learning and constantly, you know, putting in place things. And that's what I did. And I thought, you know, I want to travel. I want to see my family. Like, my brothers and sisters were starting to have babies. I wanted to be around for my nieces and nephews. And I didn't have a relationship. I wanted to have a relationship. I wanted my own family. I didn't want to be the one that turns up at Christmas every year, which was happening. And I was the only person that didn't have anyone. And, you know, and again, I'm pouring my love into other people's babies like I pour my love into brand babies. So I was birthing other people's brands constantly. Other people are birthing around me, and I'm the only one there going, okay, you know, I don't want to do this on my own anymore. I want, you know, I'm a very community-based creature. I need people to love, and I get my love and fulfillment from contribution most of the time. So I really wanted that, but there was no space in my life. There was no room in my head. And it was like, you know, if I'm going to do that, then I need to design my business around me having the life that I want. And so I set out to build the world's largest and most valuable brand building resource for fast growth businesses. Within 4 weeks of me thinking, well, okay, so if I'm going to do that, who do I need to be to show up? What do I need to create? How can I make a bigger impact? How do I contribute? How often do I need to show up? How do I stand in my power and real intention of that? And so I started to do that. And I just used the network that I had around me, which, you know, luckily I'd built up a lot of friends and a lot of fans. And so I started to do that. But, you know, that was another thing that I realized was I'd spent so many years building up business brands that I was pretty much starting from scratch with my personal brand, which is another thing that I really go into a lot now is, you know, how do you get that personal brand working at the same time as the business brand so you don't get lost off and assumed, you're not starting from scratch each time you want to do something new. So I really learned that lesson at that time as well. So many lessons. And so I did learn them. And now because I've learned them, I'm able to train millions of people to make sure that they don't have to learn that mistake. And so I set out to do that. And it was interesting. Within about 4 weeks, I changed that vision. So instead of focusing on fast growth businesses, what I realized was I was attracting all these people that, you know, cash machine, internet cash machine, money pouring in, blah, blah, blah. I started attracting those and my values were not aligned with that. And so I changed that last bit to purpose-driven entrepreneurs, and it completely shifted the energy and the spirit of my business. And I believe that is one of the reasons that the spirit has carried this brand as much as my spirit has carried it. And it reaches into the spirit of everybody that shares that same value alignment and that same desire to make a global impact. And so very quickly, you know, within 18 months, we were in 23 countries, nearly 24. And it really exploded globally. And then last year, 3 years into building that, 2 years ago, my business partner, he decided to exit the company. And I thought, how the hell am I going to do this on my own? But I got resourceful. I found a way. And also, I didn't really like selling. And I thought, okay, that's not going to be great because as a business owner, you got to sell stuff. So I thought, how can I build a business model that means I don't have to sell? And I don't need a sales team. How do I do that? And it kind of got born by accident. So there I am looking at my Facebook group last Christmas. This isn't long ago. This is, 17 months ago maybe. So there I am. I'm looking at my Facebook group and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm doing a lot of work here. It's a lot of work. A lot of energy is going in to try and get everybody to communicate. And I'm really big on collaboration. Why isn't this happening? So I thought, what am I going to do? Well, one of the products I created is daily branding tips. It was like pick something and get shizazzle done, right? Just pick it, get it done. And so I thought, okay, well, if I take 30 days from that and I just do a challenge, then, it'll get people going a bit. I had no idea. I ran that for 30 days. The group went from just over 700 to about 3,500. I did no Facebook advertising. I did no promotion. It exploded. And there's a formula behind that I now know and I use to really explode communities and build brands. And so I did that. And off the back of that, everyone's like messaging me and texting me saying, we love this challenge. This has been brilliant. What do we do now? What's next? God, I haven't got anything for them. I'd been looking for a membership product, but I didn't want to create one for the sake of it. And I knew I wanted to create it based on what people needed, but it also needed to revolve around my life now, and I'm always looking at that. How does this fit in with me? And so I launched the Brand Builders Club, and we tested it for 9 months. It's so weird. It's like there's this 9-month birthing thing that goes on around me.
Funny that, 9 months.
I know. And so we tested that. So we ended up launching that in February last year, and we tested it for about 9 months. We got really good feedback from our members. They told us, what were we doing too much of? What did we need to do more of? What would help to make it easier for people to go through the process? And we just really tested it. Where are the things in your business that are holding you back the most? What's holding you back from building your brand, which is reputation, not branding, the logo and stuff. The reputation is really where my sandbox is. So how do we build that reputation and get you tons, millions of pounds, dollars and euros of free PR? How do we do that? And so making that global impact on the way. And so I really thought about how I could do that, and we turned it into a 12-month program. So in January this year, we launched it officially, and the Brand Builders Club is now a global center of brand building excellence for purpose-driven entrepreneurs who want to turn that purpose into profit, that are passionate about what they do, that their heart is singing, not hurting, and that they're going out there and really making an impact. And something that we've just done, which I'm so excited about, because, impact and contribution is something that I want to measure, but I haven't been able to measure it before. And so now we've partnered, and I know that you were looking at doing this as well, partnered with an amazing cause which measures impact. Yeah. And so what we've been able to do is go back through all of our Brand Builders Club members, and we announced this at our members day a couple of days ago in Heathrow and Holland last week, that we're going back through all our members. So I aimed for about 10 members a month starting from January, and we're at 139 now. We had about 39 join just in the last 30 days. And so it's really the momentum and the impact that we're making is making a difference. So I looked at that and said, okay, so we've got 139 members. Well, the causes that I've decided to invest in per member that signs up, we're going to backdate that. So we're going to invest back and then also forward for every member that comes on board. And so we worked out that for every member, one child has cataracts removed so they regain their eyesight. 100 children receive the vitamin A injection they need to keep their eyesight. We're all about vision, right? Yeah. And then we give 3 sewing machines to 3 women in Africa that can start their own home-based business to feed their family. And that's for every Brand Builders Club member. So when we multiplied that by 139 globally that we have right now, it's thousands of impacts. And so for us, we were really mind blown by that. And when we shared that with the Brand Builders Club, members were coming up to me and saying, oh my God, I didn't realize that me signing up to make a global impact would also have that impact. And I had someone that came up to me a couple of the day after and said, Sammy, it blew my mind. I couldn't sleep that night. That I had created manifested one woman being able to start her own home-based business to feed her family, that 100 children would keep their eyesight because they're getting the essential vitamins that they need, and one child that's suffering from these painful eye problems or cataracts has now got their sight back. So I couldn't sleep. I was so excited, the fact that I'd made this impact, and I did it, and I didn't even know I was doing it. I want to know how I can do more of that. And I'm like, okay, join, So the Brand Builders Club is doing amazing things. And so I'm able now, I travel all the time. My family, fortunately, are old enough to come and start working in the business. So 2 of our children now work in the business. We were able to take our other daughter. We went to launch the Brand Builders Club in Atlanta for one day in July. And we just said, you know what? Why are we even going home? I'm not booked to speak anywhere. I took the whole of August off. We built a global business for this reason. Why don't we just travel and do stuff as we go? Let's prove that this is a model that anybody in the world can really implement and live a life and give life at the same time. So we're just living constantly in contribution. And I can tell you there have been times, it's really funny, I went to an event a couple of weeks ago in London, and they showed on the slide Elon Musk, and it was I can't remember exactly what it was, so I'm just going to throw some figures out there. I've got the visual on my phone. Elon Musk sold PayPal for 150 million, put 50 million into SpaceX, 30 million into Tesla, and 60 million into blah blah blah. Couldn't afford his rent. It was like, that is the life of the entrepreneur, isn't it? Right? You give it everything you've got. And Christmas last year, so a year after I'd done that first challenge, we got to Christmas and I had invested everything I had into everything I was doing. And I was a bit silly and I hadn't accounted for Christmas. I'd forgotten that Christmas even existed, to be quite honest. It got to about a week before Christmas and I was like, I forgot about this. Why is there so much bloody... I literally did this. Why is there so much traffic everywhere? And Greg says to me, it's Christmas next week. Because I'm so busy playing that I completely forget about bank holidays and Christmas and things. It's like we kind of live in. It's like Christmas all the time. So I forget about these official holidays. And so it gets to the week before Christmas and I realize that it's Christmas. Well, I was made redundant 2 years in a row, going back to 2002 when I very first started freelancing. I was made redundant twice, 2 years in a row. And the third year was coming. And that's why I set up my own business in the first place, because I thought I don't want anyone else to have control over my money. And I couldn't afford Christmas presents 2 years in a row. And that killed me because I'm such a person of contribution. So here I am, 15, 16 years later, I've built all these businesses. I've got all this money coming in. And I'm a week before Christmas thinking, shit, I haven't got in the bank what I was thinking that I would have in the bank to do Christmas. So now all those feelings come back. They come rushing back. Failure. Terrible. I'm not good in business and all this stuff. And then Greg, he literally takes me and he says, do you know how much travel we've done and how much fun we've had? You know that tomorrow there'll be even more money. He said, I guarantee you're going to wake up and you're going to have payment notifications on your phone because every day you do. So get out of this mindset. That's old mindset. It's not going to help you. Focus on how you can contribute. And I thought, okay. And I got into that state and the money was there. And, so the mindset still plays tricks on you.
Of course.
And so we get to Christmas and then it's like, I'm looking forward to getting through Christmas because I'm going to run the next challenge on the 27th of December. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. Well, within 2 days of starting that challenge, I'm back on form because I was contributing. And the money starts flowing again. And it teaches me this lesson. Every time I go into a place of lack, it's because I'm focusing on me rather than you. And every time I focus on you, I'm in my A game. And every time I focus on you and I'm on purpose, I'm making profit. And so it takes that bit of time to switch around, and it still comes and bites me on the bottom sometimes, but ultimately when you're in flow and you're in contribution, they say, I remember someone saying once, and I can't remember who it was, but they said, if you're not making the money you want, you're not serving in a big enough way yet. And I thought, boom, that's ultimately it, isn't it? That's ultimately it. But be careful with your language is the only thing I'd say, and take it from, I'm going to help people to, because you don't get paid for help, to I'm going to coach people, or I'm going to train people, I'm going to impact on people, I'm going to fill in the blank. So there's an exchange, there's a value exchange.
Well, there has to be.
There has to be.
Women of contribution, if you're giving, you have to receive. So on that point,
it helps you to give more.
It most certainly does. Let's have a look here, and hopefully modern technology will be okay, and I'll be able to see some of the questions. Or it may be that, again, that I might not be able to pull it up. I've got some comments here. So Vicky Spencer said, that's so powerful. We love our clients. Sue Krogan said, I'm amazed you thought you could run 5 businesses and not have any stress or physical problems. Glad you've changed it now and are functioning well. So
You know, the thing is, it's that elasticity thing again. It was like, you know, if you want something done, ask a busy person, right? So they kept coming to me and I was just taking more on. I didn't see I was taking it on. If I'd have had my helicopter hat on, if I'd have gone, looked over my life, easy, I'd have been able to give myself that advice. But it's, you know, just another thing, just can you just. And I wasn't good at saying no back then. So it just becomes bigger, doesn't it? You don't even realize because you're in it.
And being able to say no is kind of one of those essentials that we learn as we go along, especially in business. Let me just have a look on my phone and see whether I've got anything here that question-wise. And if not, it may be that we will come back to them. So hold on one second. No, they're mainly comments at the moment. So if you have questions for Sammy, please post them in the comments, and both her and I will be around so that we can answer any questions that you have. Now, I know that you two are also giving our wonderful viewers a chance to have a little bit of you for free. So tell our viewers what it is that you're giving away for free.
So what I kept finding was the basic essentials weren't in place for many of the businesses that were coming to me. And I hear a lot, well, I haven't started my business yet. I'm going to get started on it and then I'll come back to you. Well, that's always a problem because then I've got to unpick everything to start again. So I just thought, you know, I'm just going to create a 6-step system for brand success. That means that even the basics would be in place, you know. And that you would start to communicate differently, or at least start to think about your brand, your reputation, you know, who you are, holding your shape. What is your shape? That you would start to think about that in a bigger way. So I'm giving that 6-step system for brand success as my gift and my contribution. But that also, we run events all over the world, and you know, you can't come to those events unless you're personally invited by one of our members. So as Kezia is part of our family, Kezia can invite you. Yeah. So I'm going to gift whoever Kezia wants to bring with her to our next major Members Day. Is going to be in January. We've got one in December. It's a totally different event we're running in December, and that's partnered with other people. So it's not part of the Brand Builders Club. That's more how to build a brand because they're separate businesses now. But in January, we've got a great event lined up. It's absolutely phenomenal. Our events, everyone, the feedback we get each time is, I didn't think you could top the last one, but you just did. I mean, the event we just ran a couple of days ago, we ran in Holland last week, Heathrow a couple of days ago in London. I'm in France this week. We're in Orlando delivering it in a couple of weeks, and then we launch in New York the week after that. So it's really making a global impact. And so, you know, if you are in Orlando or New York, or you know someone there, please invite them to come along. We'd love to see them. Our next event in the UK for the Brand Builders Club that I'm inviting you to come and experience, you know, being part of that incredible family of everybody that's getting shizazzle done in a real global impact kind of way. And we're working towards the UN goals. So as a group, we're really looking at how do we contribute. And my big thing is partnerships out of the 17 global goals. So partnerships is a big thing for me. And I believe that actually through partnerships, we can change all of the other things and support with all of the other things. So that's happening in January in the UK. So I'll let you have the dates and you can maybe share them or something, or I can put them below.
Please,
I'd love to see you.
Yeah, put them below. And obviously we'll round up now, but I can't thank you enough, because I had the vision for the book and the Women of Contribution. And it was only when I started working with you and you gave me a royal kick up the backside that I really stepped forward into my full power. And as Women of Contribution, we have to surround ourselves with these phenomenal women who not can only see our light shining, but also help us to gain the confidence and the motivation and the inspiration to take that step forward and truly be the people that we were destined to be, you know, on this planet. So thank you so much for taking time out. And like I say, any questions, please post them in the comments below. And Sammy will be more than happy to answer them. And she'll also post about the exciting January Brand Builders Club. And let's be honest, who doesn't want to kick off the year with a massive big boom?
Oh my gosh, we've got people flying in from all over the world, amazing leaders that are flying in for that. So yeah, I'll be checking in. I'm leaving for France in a few hours. I'm currently in another hotel in Heathrow right now. But so yeah, while I'm driving to France, James is driving. So I'll be checking in on the comments and things. I'd just love to hear from you, and I love to connect. Let's collaborate. Let's achieve the global goals that we set, even if that goal is something that you want to do for your family. It's still a goal. It makes a difference, and how you show up means that other people will show up differently, so you can be that brand you want to see in the world. So I'm very excited to meet you.
Wonderful. Well, we will be back at 8 p.m. UK time with the lovely Debbie Cromack, who'll be phoning in from the States. But have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, and we will speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.